So I'm going to turn it over first to Stephanie, who will take us through some introductory things, and then we'll get going. We have several guest speakers today as well, so thanks for being here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is, there's Astrid. If you need any tech support, please chat directly to Astrid. And my name is Stephanie Sommers, and I am the ACES coordinator. And this is our second webinar for this year related to ACES and transitions-minded instruction. And again, we want to thank everyone for joining us. Since we started doing these, our attendance has been growing on a regular basis, and it's great to know that so many people are interested in this initiative. Joining me today, we'll have a few different people. Patsy, of course, has already introduced herself. Astrid is also with us as our tech hostess. Liz Andress is going to be joining us for a little while today, and she is here to talk about the new Adult Career Pathways library that is available through the Atlas. It's one of the new Atlas resource libraries. So Liz will be speaking about that. And then Mary Zamacona from the Minnesota Literacy Council is also going to be joining us today. And she is here to talk about some project-based learning that she's done with her students. And we're going to be focusing on that as a way to integrate more standards into our lesson planning. So lots of content today, hopefully a lot of great stuff on the way. So here we go. Our objectives for today, we just have a few different things. We're going to learn about upcoming transitions-related PD. We are going to examine how project-based learning can be a catalyst for embedding transition skills as well as other standards. We are going to unpack a project-based lesson and identify the ACES and TIF skills, and that's why I have asked people to download and print a copy of the lesson that was in your lesson or your webinar materials, as well as the graphic organizer. And that is also why you'll need your TIF booklet with you. So hopefully you've got those things together and we'll be able to use them when we get to that part of our webinar. And then as always, we're hoping this is a good opportunity for you to network with other ACES leaders from around the state. Please feel free to use the chat box at any time to share questions or ideas or comments, and we'll be reading those out when we see them. All right, let's see if we can get through these. Okay, to get started, we are going to take a poll, and we're asking people to just let us know where are you joining us from today so we can see what kind of representation we have from around the state. I also want to mention Astrid's just chatted out that to find materials, you'll need to click on the materials section, which is in your GoToTraining control panel. For me, it's just above the chat box. So if you could go there, if you're looking for the materials, it has an arrow, it will drop down and expand. And thank you, Bernadette. Actually, let me launch that poll, and then you will be able to go ahead and answer right now. So that poll should be open. Okay. And Patsy's just reminding us that this session is being recorded. Sometimes people are not able to join us live. And so if you know of someone who is missing this today and was interested, we will have this up on our Minnesota PD YouTube channel within the next few days. And I will also send out a copy of the link to the recording when we follow up with you. And I believe it will get sent out with the evaluation, or I'll do that myself if it's not automatic. So we've got about 78% of us having voted. 83% of us have voted on their polls. So that could be about everyone who's not a presenter today. So we have no one from Northeast Minnesota. We have 13% of us from, oh, someone's saying, why didn't I mention Central Minnesota? Well, Caroline, that's just because I'm a goofball, I guess. Sorry about that. certainly did not mean to disrespect Central Minnesota. 13% of us are from Southeast Minnesota, 73% from the Twin Cities, 7% from Northwest, 7% from Southwest. And then apologies to anyone joining us from Central Minnesota. That was certainly my mistake. You can see these results for yourself right now. So the Metro taking the biggest bite out of who's joining us today, but we are certainly glad that people from other programs around the state were also able to join us. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hide those results and try to remember how to get back to my screen. I hope people are seeing my screen. Okay, so moving on, we are going to do a few transitions updates. So during this section, we're going to be talking about some upcoming professional development, give you some updates on the CCI cohort, and also some updates on the ACES course. So, as most of you probably know, the Metro Regional and the Spring Regionals are coming up. The Metro ABE Regional will be at Hamlin on March 10th, which is a week from tomorrow. There will be several transitions-related sessions at that event. So I will be doing a repeat of a session that I did for the North Fall Regionals. This was at both of the Fall Regionals, I guess. How to plan lessons that align to both CCRS and ACES TIF. So that session focuses on integrating more standards into your lesson planning. It'll be, if you like what we do today with the project-based learning and looking at standards, you might like this session called Raising Your Standards. Then Liz Andress will be starting her work unveiling the Adult Career Pathways Library. She's going to be talking about that at the Metro Regional during session 2. So that would be a great place to find out about all the new content being added to that library, lots of great curriculum and resources there. And then Julie Dindow, our State Transitions Coordinator, the Three Amigos, she's going to be talking about integrated English literacy and civics education, workforce preparation activities, and integrated education and training. So these are 3 new allowable activities under WIOA, and Julie will be talking about how programs might want to start taking advantage of some of these types of activities in their instruction. All right. Then there are some other regional events happening. There'll be a spring regional for the South down in Mankato on April 21st. Again, Liz is going to be taking her show on the road and talking about the Adult Career Pathways Library at that regional event. And she will also be in Grand Rapids, April 27th or 28th, talking about the Adult Career Pathways Library. So we encourage all of you to talk to your staff about these regionals, get people involved, and come out and learn more about what's going on with our transitions initiatives and everything else Atlas puts together. Another thing we just want to kind of put on your radar, although it is far in the future, is Summer Institute is going to be in St. Cloud again this year, August 16th to 18th. And the call for proposals has recently gone out. They are going to be accepting proposals through April 3rd, and there is a link here for the Literacy Action Network website where you can find out more information. I have also included in the materials tab a planning worksheet that LAN has put together. It's a way for you to start thinking about the different components of a session that you might want to present, and you can plan it out on paper before you do the online proposal. So they are accepting proposals for 45 or 90-minute sessions, and they are also going to be doing poster sessions again this year. In the picture on your screen, you see the beautiful Rosie Sharkey doing a poster session from a couple of years ago, where she showed the connections between ACES and CCRS. So poster sessions are less formal maybe than doing a regular session where everyone sits in a room and looks at you for 90 minutes. During a poster session, they're set up during the lunch break, one of the days of the conference. You bring some materials, you create a poster, and then it's kind of just a mixer. People walk by, they talk to you about what you've got on your poster, and it's a really great way to kind of dip your toes in the water if you're interested in presenting. It's also a really fantastic way to share lessons that you have come up with or activities that you've tried with your students, especially those that maybe integrate TIF or CCRS or other things. If you've got other great lesson ideas that you'd like to share, doing a poster about those is a pretty low stress way to get the word out. So we encourage you to consider doing a proposal, since all of Summer Institute, of course, relies on people being willing to step up and do those sessions. So do consider submitting something. And next, we are going to turn things over to Liz for a few minutes while she go ahead and talks about that Career Pathways Library that I've been mentioning so far. So Liz, are you ready to go?
Thank you. All right. Yes, very fun to join an ACES check-in with all of you. I was on the very ground floor of ACES way back and got to do PLCs with many of you, and now I've sort of made, I don't know, a lateral move or something into the specific area of adult career pathways. Atlas invited me into a consulting role this year with a couple of goals, and the first one is the one that's on your screen here. We heard really clearly from the field that specifically in this area of adult career pathways, so that would be what we used to call fast track, the Pathways to Prosperity grant programs, all of these initiatives that are collaborations with ABE having a role often in, say, what we'd call a bridge course, helping people prepare for the next step into post-secondary or other kinds of training, that we really needed a better way to share course curricula that has been developed across the state. It was really common that somebody would ask someone, and track down someone who had something. And then over the last couple of years, the regional transitions coordinators were sharing some things privately among themselves. So long story short, the decision was made to utilize the platform of the Atlas resource library that is already so rich and so well used by ACES practitioners, the MNI numeracy folks, STAR, all of those initiatives have the resource libraries online. It's open, easily accessible, easy to navigate. So that's what I've been developing this year. So I've taken all of the course curricula that the regional transitions coordinators had pulled together, and those are in the resource library now. And I'm going now through everything in what used to be called MinRock. So that's a repository of curricula that is going to be just disappearing online, and so we needed to move all of those over. And so I'm not going to go online now, it's really just sort of an FYI for you, but if you go to the Atlas website under resources, you will see a category, the second one I think, adult career pathways, and then under there you'll see various career fields, health, education, technical, retail and hospitality. In each of those categories now we have several sets of course materials and course curricula available to people across the state. So really the intention is anytime that anybody in your program, your consortium is thinking about or is moving into a collaboration around adult career pathways, that the project always start by looking at the resource library and what has already been developed by other people. We know, we've gotten real clear feedback from the field that anything that you find there, almost certainly you're going to be modifying. And so we've included lots of different kinds of sets of materials, some that aren't fully organized, but again, better to start with something, see how people have approached a welding class or approached a CNA prep class. Start with some of the great stuff they've got, and then move on from there. So that's all there, and then we're starting a second section in that resource library, which is going to be a whole toolbox of materials that will really be more on the program development side. So how to design a good course, we'll be putting things in there for program administrators on how to do effective collaboration, employee relations, all of that kind of thing. So that will expand over the coming year now. And as Stephanie already said, I'll be introducing these more fully and giving people some hands-on practice in utilizing the resources at the 3 spring regional events. So again, invite you to just take a look on your own, to come to those regional events, send other people there. So that was pretty much what I wanted to let you know about. Just wondering if there are any questions on the resource library. You can chat them out if you like. Okay. Yeah, so please do take a look. We have featured that resource library in the ABE Professional Development newsletter once. We'll probably do that again in the coming months, just to make sure that it becomes a go-to place for all of you doing great transitions work that includes adult career pathways. So the second area that I've been working in the consulting role has been designing or planning and now designing professional development around adult career pathways for next fiscal year. And we've got 2 primary areas that we'll be delivering next year that we're really excited about. We've gotten a lot of input from people in the field. We've had a great transitions PD advisory group helping us shape this. So one area will be a year-long cohort for ABE managers, administrators on the program side. Again, as I was saying, developing relationships with employers, collaborating with workforce centers, ensuring strong enrollments and persistence in the programs, being very goal-oriented in all of that work. It's really complex stuff, and our whole approach will really be what I think of as an experiential learning model. So rather than sort of bringing people in and telling them best practices and then saying good luck on your project, will really be grounding everybody in their own experience that they already have in adult career pathways wherever they are in their projects and in their collaborative relationships, and then really helping people set what I think of as SMART goals, like what do they want to move forward, how are they going to do that, what kind of support and accountability do they want with their cohort in order to make really demonstrable improvements in their goal areas on site in their project. So very excited about that. The final tweaks are being put together on the plan, and design will start later this month. And applications, I think, are probably going out in April and May. And then sort of a similar approach with instructors, a cohort model, very action product oriented. One of the things that we found as we were looking at curriculum from around the state and all of the great ABE courses that have been developed in all these different career fields is that the materials are not always in real great shape. We know that a lot of times instructors just have to sort of chase it as they go, got all their stuff, the class was really great, but it's not really very well documented, and there are also some gaps just in terms of best practice in course design. And so we sort of backtracked, given that, and have developed some tools, and we'll be delivering an instructor PD cohort next year, just to get more people across the state with knowledge and skills to be designing really great adult career pathways courses and documenting them in a way that they are easily shared across to other programs and instructors. So that's what we've got. Again, just available to answer any questions. Otherwise, our real intention today was to make you aware of these and ask you to stay tuned to the PD newsletter and emails as the particulars and the applications roll out.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Liz, for providing all of that great information. And Patsy's reminding us that Liz is going to be at all the regional events in case people want to learn more. I'm sure that they do, and she'll be there in person to answer questions. And if anyone has questions right now, we will be monitoring the chat, so you can go ahead and chat them out, and we'll be able to try to address your questions the best we can. But I want to thank Liz for being with us today and sharing all that great information. The next thing that we're going to do is just for a couple minutes look a little bit what came out of our CCI cohorts. Remember, CCI is the Career Focused Contextualized Basic Skills Instruction Cohort. And we're accepting applications this fall, and then the first actual training for the cohort members happened in February, on February 9th and 10th at Hamlin. So what you're seeing here on your screen is just a picture of one of the groups, a construction group. They were working on thinking about skills and what kinds of skills people would need to work in construction. So what we did here was kind of create a little graphic organizer. They were thinking about academic skills needed. They were thinking, that's in the top left corner. And in the top right corner, they've got professional or soft skills. And then in the bottom left, there were career-specific skills, and then digital literacy. And I picked this one because they had some kind of funny drawings, and we were talking about safety, safety on the job. So you can see some of the things that they came up with. So about the cohort specifically, we did receive 18 applications, which was really great. A few people, unfortunately, weren't able to continue for different reasons. So we have 14 participants currently, and they are from 11 different programs from both inside the metro and further outstate. The three focus areas around which they'll be developing their contextualized lessons are healthcare, construction, and early childhood education. This CCI cohort, again, has to do with training instructors in how to create contextualized lessons and units that help students develop their basic skills like reading, writing, and math, while also learning more about the vocabulary and content information needed to be successful within a particular career field. So up to this point, the way we've kind of been talking about it is the CCI cohort is instructor training, and then the training that Liz was just speaking about will be manager training, and they will obviously sort of work together to help more programs prepare for offering contextualized instruction, because that is a big part of WIOA and funding going forward. So here's a picture from our training, and then I also wanted to share with you some of what's been going on in Schoology. So this training it started, like I said, we had a kickoff webinar in January. We had a 2-day face-to-face meeting in February. Now the participants are on Schoology, and they are also going to be doing coaching calls. And then we will come back together in May for a final meeting where everyone will share their lessons and units. We are very, very happy to have a lot of active participation on Schoology. This was one of our posts recently about essential questions or lines of inquiry. And you can kind of see here, my line of inquiry will be, what are in-demand healthcare professions in Minnesota? What are career options that fall under these in-demand professions? What are the steps that I need to take in order to enter into this career and to be successful? What does career success look like to me? That was actually one of my favorite ones, getting students to really think about that. How do I know that I am successful in the career field I've chosen? So again, I wanted to share this with you just so you could see what this cohort is about in a little more of a concrete way. We've been talking about line of inquiry, objectives, aligning standards to create those lessons. I have one more example of what's been going on in Schoology. So here we're getting people to kind of define, what do you think that unit or the lessons are going to be about? And then these are the different kinds of skills. What academic skills will students practice, and what career content? So here she's working on, for academic skills, reading informational text, writing, speaking, and listening are from CCRS. Then she's going to work on self-management, developing a future pathway, and navigating systems. Students will practice and develop their academic skills in reading for specific information, career vocabulary, critical thinking, digital literacy skills in all areas, and speaking skills for oral presentations. So lots of great standards and skills that will be integrated into these lessons designed around a work focus. And then for their specific career knowledge, students will be able to identify their academic and career strengths and weaknesses, options, steps, skills needed to enter or retain or advance in their career choice, specific career vocabulary, how to complete job-specific forms, and basic regulations and procedures. So we were very, very pleased, Heather and I, at all of the wonderful participation from the people who were there for our 2-day training. The folks were really, really engaged and really, really dug in deeply to all of this work around mapping out standards, writing objectives, creating lines of inquiry. So if this is the kind of stuff that you or you think the instructors in your program might benefit from knowing more about, I believe we will be doing something, if not exactly the same setup, something similar again next year with more training for programs. All right, if you have questions, do feel free to chat them out. We'd be happy to answer them. And it is one last thing we're going to talk about before we bring Mary from the agency, and I wanted people to know about this one course. That course, of course, is an online course, of course, offered through the MLC's Moodle site, and it is a self-paced course that introduces people to ACES and all categories in the TIF. You can earn 6 CEUs for completing it. And if anyone was in there earlier this fall or in the summer even, some of the videos were not working. The course has quite a few embedded videos. They were not working properly. And Marisa Geisler from Atlas took the time to go through with the help of Rob at the MLC. The videos were all recropped and re-embedded in the course. They are all working now, so we should not be having any more issues. I also wanted to give an update. During 2015-2016, the course came out, I think, in November. during that year, we had 6 people submit a final assignment. So those are the people who finished the course front to back. Many more people, checked it out, maybe looked at pieces of it, but 6 people actually submitted the assignment that issued them the CEUs. This year, we've already had 9 people submit that final assignment. So we are seeing an uptick in the number of people going there and taking the course and learning about ACES. So I think that's been exciting, that people are using it and enjoying it and submitting their assignment. So if you know of anyone who is looking for CEUs for relicensure or is new to ABE and needs to learn about ACES, please direct them to the course. And again, everything should be working properly. So we're very happy about that. All right, it is time for another poll as we get started talking about project-based learning. We are going to go ahead and ask you to share with us what you know about project-based learning. So I'm going to launch this poll. Please go ahead and answer the questions. So we've got a couple people voting, lots of people in the middle here, taking middle ground. 60% of you have voted. 70% of you have voted. 75%. 80%. We'll keep this open for another few seconds. 90%. All right, and I think that might be as good as it gets. So I will share these results. So according to our poll, 22% of us feeling not so confident about articulating the components and benefits of planning project-based learning experiences for students. 11% rated themselves a 2. Most of us were in the middle, 33% at a 3. So maybe I know some of the components and benefits, but not all. 28% were at a 4, and just 6% of us said we're highly confident. I got this. I know exactly what the components and benefits are. All right, so we're going to launch the same poll again after we hear from Mary today and look at a couple project-based lessons, and we'll see if anyone changes from what we've got now. All right, I'm going to jot these numbers down so we can compare at the end. All right, and I am going to close this poll, and I'm going to make sure that we're back on our PowerPoint. And I want to extend a very, very warm welcome to Mary Zamacona from the Minnesota Literacy Council. She took time out of her workday today and away from her students to join us and talk about a project that she did on a school garden. Before Mary speaks, Patsy is going to talk for just a moment about the project-based learning library on the Atlas website, where you can find many, many project-based learning lessons. Patsy, would you just talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, just a quick moment so people know that this is out there and something that they can explore. We won't take much time to look through it now because we want to give Mary all the time she needs to talk about her project, which is much more interesting than me talking about our library. But just so you know that this is out there, this is one of the resource libraries that we've created in recent years, really just focused on project-based learning, or PBL as you might see it referred to. One of the reasons for this was, well, lots of reasons, but there was a guest speaker at a literacy conference at Hamlin a couple years back, Nell Duke of the University of Michigan, and she's done quite a bit of work around project-based learning in K-12 settings, and really thinking of it as a way to implement rigorous standards, particularly around reading and writing. And so several of us were able to go to that conference and listen to her give a couple of workshops. In fact, some of us got to hear her twice that year. She was in town a couple times from Michigan to visit for various events. And we're just really taken with what she had to say. And given what we know about adult learning and adult goals and interests, that so much of what they really want to do is very hands-on, very real life. They have immediate applications and immediate relevancy for their lives that they're looking for in our classes, and project-based learning really feeds into that beautifully. But what we sometimes don't think about is how very easily we can implement standards in projects as well. It also goes hand in hand with the adult diploma and thinking of kind of larger projects that students might work on to hit several different competencies in one kind of larger extended project. So lots of good reasons to learn more about project-based learning. The way the library is set up, there's a kind of a general area about getting started with PBL or project-based learning that you're seeing here in a screenshot. And then on the side in that yellow box you see there's basically three places you can go for more information. One is for more extensive projects, so things that'll take multiple weeks probably to complete if you really want to do a large project. And I believe the one that Mary's speaking about is the garden, the videos, and that one took place over the span of a summer, so and she'll talk more about that. Other projects don't have to take nearly that long. They might be a day or two, right? But it's something hands-on, a project that students are completing, a product that they can show tangibly at the end of a unit of instruction. So those are organized under short-term projects. And then there's a workshop archive. We've been fortunate to have so many people in Minnesota ABE who do project-based learning and have been willing to present on the topic at different events such as Summer Institute or regionals or Language and Literacy Institute. And so we've just placed those workshop materials, the PowerPoints and handouts and such, in one place so that they're easy to find. While we have an events archive, it can be tricky to find things sometimes, so we wanted to just pull out those things that have to do with project-based learning and put them all in one place. So that's what you've got here. It's easy to find. It's on the Atlas website, and then just under resources, you'll look for project-based learning.
Okay, thanks, Patsy. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and chat them out, and we can always circle back to this library. But we do want to be respectful of the fact that Mary took time out to join us today. So hopefully on your screen you are seeing the first page of a project-based learning template that Mary used to develop and plan her unit. Just for ease of access, I included a blank lesson planning template with your materials in case anyone wants to use that, give it a go in their program after this webinar. But I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Mary to talk us through what we see here in this template. Are you ready to go, Mary?
Hi, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. So my class is it's an employment readiness class, and it meets after the ESL day is finished. So it is the 5th hour of a student's day, and I have the students for 1 hour. I have them 5 days a week. So kind of that's the context for my situation here. As you know, English is very tiring to learn, and when you've been in school all day, it's really hard to get those students in that 5th hour motivated and not falling asleep. So I always am looking for ways to keep learners really engaged and excited about learning and making sure that their time is precious and that I'm providing them something useful for their lives. So the context for this project, actually, as Patsy mentioned, came from the session I went to from Nell Duke on project-based learning in K-12. And I just loved how engaging the projects were and how students really rose above what you would expect they could do. And so we have a garden at our site here. And it's kind of a collaborative process with all of the classes working in it. It's land that the church we're located in has given to us, and everything else is up to us to do. So we plan it. One of our advanced classes plans the garden size and stakes out the fencing. We have seeding and planting days, and so it's kind of a project that goes on through the summer. So within that, we were already working out in the garden, but I thought, how could we make this more exciting and interesting for students besides just going out and reading and talking about plants? I wanted to kind of bring in another dimension with technology. And one of our other teachers wanted us to make welcome videos, just a short welcome to our school videos that we could post on our website. And in that process, I thought, well, this would be really fun to do for our garden also, to let people know about our garden. And it does, the garden is not free to run. We always need to raise funds each year. The students, I ask them every year if they want to continue it, because we're not doing it because we want to do it, to make sure that they still want to keep that going. And they did. So I kind of formed it around, well, let's teach others about it. And our audience would be the public, other learners, anyone else interested in maybe doing a school garden themselves. So that's sort of what the project was based around. And so with project-based learning, you always have kind of a problem or a question or some driving force behind something you want to solve. So our essential question was, how can we teach others about the garden? And so the audience, we knew, and I was upfront with students all along that, the product we would make is a movie, and many of them were, I don't know how to make a movie, I've never made a movie, and just assuring them that it was okay, we were going to learn it together. So they knew what the final product was, and that it would be shared with the public if they wanted to. So it wasn't, it was up to the student groups in the end whether they wanted to make their videos public. And so they still had to do the process even if they didn't want theirs public. That was more important for me, was that process of creating the video than the final product. And I think that's something important to remember with project-based learning, is the process is where all the learning happens. The product is beautiful and fun, and it keeps everyone motivated, but people will drop out, with open enrollment. You may not have everyone there who started the project, and so keeping in mind how you're assessing along the way. The final product is part of the assessment, but more weight is actually put on the process and how people are interacting with the group and participating. And so, students were, it's always surprising. I was really happy with how it turned out. I think in retrospect, we always learned this was the first large project. It took place about a month. It took me about a month to get through all of the stages of this project. So something important to remember, that if you start with a large project and you have open enrollment, you're going to have some extra challenges. And one of the things I did was make sure I had large enough groups of 4 or 5. And within those groups, that there was a mixture of levels, familiarity with technology. I knew who my good iPhone or phone users were, and some of that technology skill, crosses over into the iPad use with iMovie. And then making sure that within those groups you have good attenders. So there's always people that are on the periphery that come in and out more irregularly, making sure they're mixed with people who are more regular attenders. So I think in retrospect, I would have probably tried to make it shorter. I think with open enrollment, I would suggest projects no longer than 2 to 3 weeks. But I was lucky, I did have all my learners stay with me, and that's because our unique situation is it is an employment readiness class, and those students are required by MFIP standards to stay with me until they get a job, and so I was lucky that group, nobody had left for a job at that point. But I think in a regular ESL class, projects no longer than 2 to 3 weeks would be advisable. So that's sort of where it came out of. I have the sections within this project is in 4 phases, and this is based from Nell Dukes. She had a template set up a similar way. So thinking about a project launch, what do you need to launch it? What's some of the background information students need to be able to know and do to make sure those are in place before. So before getting into making a video about the garden, we did sort of little mini videos, playing with the iPad, allowing them that time to play with the camera function with no stakes in the end product. and then learning how to evaluate, looking at what are garden videos that are out there already. So what products are out, and what does that look like, sort of as a model or a guide to our final product. So that was phase 1. And phase 2 is getting more into the writing, the research, the planning. So whatever your project is, right, this is where the kind of the foundational work happens. So with knowing what my end product is, I had created a rubric of things I wanted students to be able to do in their video. So we had a storyboard, but before we could get to the storyboard, students needed to be able to talk about vegetables and know their names in English. And I did have an element, I didn't want them to just list the vegetables in our garden. I wanted them to be able to describe maybe how to cook a vegetable. So expand on one thing besides saying this is cucumber, this is lettuce. So I did have that extra piece in there describing how to cook a vegetable. And of course that took a few days to put in place, making sure they had the vocabulary to talk about how to prepare a dish, something simple. And they just had to do one vegetable. And then talking about why the garden is important to them, that was one of the pieces that they needed to include in their video. And so having time to put all those pieces in place and learning how to evaluate their own video footage. Allow them to film in clips, which I recommend. iMovie is really easy to put clips together. They weren't so unmanageable if you had one long piece of video. It's a lot harder to edit. But just having a series of clips, like they basically filmed showing tomatoes. This is a tomato plant. That was one clip. And in the end, they actually put all those clips together in the editing phase. So that was phase 3, was reflecting and revising. So they were matching their video clips in an order. So they didn't film everything at one time or over on one day. They did it over many days. And the iPads were marked. We have them all numbered. So there's definitely organization needed on behalf of the teacher to keep track of what group, what iPad. So over this period, it was good to remind students where we came from and where we're going and where we're at right now. So they didn't lose sight of what our end product was or the expectations. That's really important in a project that goes on for a couple of weeks or more. So students got to play with the editing, putting together splices, and I did just-in-time lessons on how to use the iPad and the iMovie features within it. So we, as they got to that stage, then when they were starting to play with the iMovie features, I was able to give them little mini lessons on how to put video clips together and play with the sound and play with text. So they were putting text in on their iMovies too. The final phase of the project, of course, is the best, is the celebrating. We got to view the videos. Ultimately, we had 3 videos created because of our, each group had about 4 to 5 students. So that was a manageable amount. One of the videos ended up being 8 minutes long. And in retrospect, I realized I should have put a time limit on it, which I hadn't. So the 8-minute movie was too long to put on YouTube, and that group had agreed that they weren't quite finished or happy with it to be published. The other 2 videos naturally came out about 2 minutes when they had completed all the pieces that was in the rubric for them to include in the video. So that is kind of a nutshell of where the video, this project came from and where we went.
Okay, Mary, thank you. So what we're going to do now for everyone, this is everyone, is I'm going to go back to phase 1 of Mary's video, or Mary's project, and I'd like you to think about those TIF skills. So this is where your graphic organizer can come into play. So you can write on it, or you can just use it for reference. and hopefully you've got your TIFs handy. So we're going to go through the different phases of this project, and I'd like people to be identifying what ACES TIF skills they see, and I'd like you to use the chat box to chat some of those out. And then as Mary, in just a minute, we'll show you what Mary identified as the standards that she was using in this lesson. So looking at the project launch, the activities, the objectives, introduce welcome video examples and rubric, student groups play with video app on iPad using welcome to school sentence frame. Student groups use rubric to assess welcome video, so we're assessing something in groups. Groups refilm and refine welcome video, so you might say that we're doing something around checking for quality or, assessing the quality of our work. And student groups access example videos using rubric. So really just in those 4 steps, I see quite a lot of standards being addressed. So it would be great if people would get a little active now and chat out using your chat boxes a few of the TIF skills that you see there. So we'll pause for maybe 30 seconds or so, and I'll keep it here so that you can think and chat out a few things. And then we'll move on to phase 2. So do you think there could be any effective communication skills being addressed here? So Patsy said learning strategies to organize, retain, and review materials, perhaps. Okay. Other people who are not the director of Atlas, who might want to go ahead and jump on the chat. We're all friends here. Okay. Oh, then to phase 2. Maybe in phase 2, people will see more skills. So in phase 2, we're using graphic organizers. When I think about graphic organizers right away, I think about critical thinking skills. Students use graphic organizer in the garden to list vegetables and writing in picture form. Teacher introduces cooking vocabulary. Groups choose one veg to explain how to cook. So to explain, I'm assuming they have to communicate in order to learn that vocabulary. Maybe that's a learning strategy. Allie Riley, if you were here, I'd hug you for chatting out. Phase 2 is critical thinking. Thank you, Allie. What else? What else do we see here? Groups finish cooking explanation. In gardens, groups present. So we're using presenting skills. Groups evaluate their video segments. Yes, Allie, effective communication is necessary for group work. Groups evaluate their video segment on how to cook a vegetable using garden video assessment. Which category of the TIF has anything to do with evaluating someone's own work? Does anyone know that? And then you're assigning jobs within a group. Groups write scripts, groups practice and record. I know there are other skills happening here. It would be great if a couple more people would be willing to join in and chat out. I'm thinking there might be some self-management here. I'm thinking there might be some navigating systems here. Open up those TIF books. Have a look. I'm looking right now at self-management, skill 3, evaluate progress and adjust accordingly. That might be necessary for finishing a project like this. Okay, we'll go on to phase 3. All right, so phase 3, reflect and revise. Groups match video clips to items on the rubric. Groups determine missing pieces and continue to film. Teacher introduces video editing using iMovie. Groups create projects, add video clips, and edit. Groups add title and text. Groups continue to check sound, spelling, and editing. Groups do video self-assessments and assess other groups. Students are assessed on steps. Okay, I'm gonna once again ask some of our 23 participants to go ahead and use the chat box to identify some of the TIF skills. That's why we're at this webinar today, is to get more involved in the TIF, look at some of these standards, see them in action. It would really, really be great to see a little participation. Let's see. I see a lot of people are with us. Critical thinking. Okay, that's great. Critical thinking. If people were able to, yes, Elizabeth Bennett, thank you. Effective communication skill 3, using technology. Lots of digital literacy. Yeah, if people were actually able to identify a skill maybe a little deeper than a category, that might be helpful. If we could say which critical thinking skills, that might be helpful. So critical thinking skill 3, that's fantastic. Anyone else willing to get involved? Okay, so critical thinking skill 3, use information to draw conclusions and make decisions. Wonderful. Yep, I don't have the TIF memorized either. I just have it open in front of me. So I don't expect any memorization, just a little looking through. Critical thinking skill 2, solving problems. That's great, thank you. And then we'll go on to the last one here. Phase 4, hold a movie viewing party, invite other classes, post videos on the blog. If we see any skills there. Okay.
Stephanie, I think we may have lost you. This is Patsy. I just noticed that. Let me see if I can get her back here. Stephanie, are you with us? We'll let her call back in. She was using her phone to join us. So thank you for those of you who continue to name out some skills here. Looks like effective communication skill 1, absolutely. That one about working in groups. And yep, Stephanie, no worries. Come on back when you can. Looking at the key standards then, what we've got here, I know that, and Mary, if you're still with us and want to join in, feel free. Yeah, I know that you had TIF skills as well as CCRS skills kind of on your mind when you were working on these projects. Anything you want to chime in with?
Yeah, no, I wanted to say that, this project worked really well with my group. I have a big focus on speaking, listening, effective communication with these guys because they've been reading and writing all day. And by the time they come to me, We did have reading and writing within this, but the focus was really on presenting, using technology, and communicating effectively with each other. Because they're working in groups, they have to collaborate, and they had different roles, responsibilities that they were assigned. And so knowing if they missed out, that part of their group work might not have gotten done, or they would have to pick it up for the rest of their group. So, you know, working with language, we had, most of the people were the same language group, I will have to say, but they did have to use English, which was the whole point of this video, using English. Some of the technology pieces, I allow them to problem solve in their first language, which I think is completely appropriate if they're learning something new with technology. And so, like, higher level will be able to help them solve some of those problems if language became a barrier. But they did have a rubric that we continually went back to include in their video. So they did have to communicate both in English, but I did allow first language at some point as well. So yeah, effective communication, you know, that's all about learning how to work with others, how to learn how to be polite in English, and maybe problem solving. What kind of language do you need? So there's kind of two types of language. There's the language for communication, for collaboration, and there's the language for the task. So knowing garden words, English, knowing some of the vocabulary to explain cooking, those are the task pieces. So yes, I have. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mary, for talking through your standards with us, and thank you to everyone who shared out. So we really got cooking there towards the end. Lots more people chatting out different skills from the TIF. Sorry, I'm using the call-in feature, and somehow my phone went away. So sorry about that. I know my sound got lost. Just want to remind you that when we do this, we're using the ACES process. So we've been assessing Mary's lesson. If anyone has ideas about how you could maybe complement this lesson to include more skills, maybe if you think about your own class or a class that one of the teachers in your program teaches, you could think about a way that they might incorporate another skill or skill area depending on what they teach or the objectives of that class. And I'd love to see people chatting that out in the chat box. So if anyone's got some thoughts, we could share them now. And then the other parts of the ACES process, evaluate and study. I also wanted to share with you some of Mary's videos. So she's got these wonderful garden videos that we'll look at now. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up and hope that everyone can see it.
Hello, welcome to Open Door Learning Center together. I will put some vegetables in our garden. This is vegetable. This is green bean. This is lentil. This is cucumber. This is zucchini. This is tomato. I will guide you about how to cook tomato soup. And water, and chicken, and mushroom, and Finally, that data is important for the school. The students would like.
Okay. So that just gave you a little taste of what that video was like, and I'll show you that from our Atlas homepage here. If you go under Resources and Project-Based Learning, then those videos and other materials are here in the workshop archive, okay? And then there's different projects here that people can look at and maybe get involved with at their own programs. So here, Atlas Resource Library under Resources. Okay, so I want to give a big thank you to Mary, who joined us today to talk about her project. If anyone's got any questions for Mary, go ahead and share them out. And then we're going to look at one more project, and this project was done by Colleen Crossley, who works for the Robbinsdale Adult Academic Program. And her project was called the Altered Shoes Project. And you can see here's a picture of Colleen and some of her students. Colleen won't be joining us today, but she did provide me with some materials to share with you. So Colleen's here, and her project was all about helping students kind of talk about their lives, where they've been and where they want to go, using shoes as a metaphor. So you can see here some of the shoes being painted in her classroom. So this project originally comes from the Managing Stress to Improve Learning project, which was done by the New England Literacy Resource Center, and you can see some links here. Again, the project encourages students to think about things they have experienced in their lives in the past, and then think about things they would like to do, the path they want to take into the future. And they decorate a pair of shoes in order to show that. So I am going to ask people to look at this graphic organizer, okay, and to look at the lesson plan that was shared with you. It is in the materials, so it would look like this picture on your screen with the boot, but the whole lesson plan is several pages long. And I am going to pause for a couple of minutes and give people a chance to skim through the lesson and look for some of these skills. So what effective communication skills, what learning strategies, what critical thinking skills, self-management, developing a future pathway, and navigating systems. What skills would people identify as being present in this lesson? So we will pause for just a couple minutes while people do that, and then I'm going to ask you to chat out any skills that you find while you're looking at the lesson. And I can also go ahead and try to display the lesson for anyone who maybe doesn't have it. So I can do that as well. But we're going to pause for the next minute or two and give people a chance to work on some.
So I have displayed the lesson plan, and you also have it in your materials. And I am asking you just to think about what skills you see here. If you don't teach a class yourself, maybe some of the teachers that you manage, how do you think they might, what skills would be supported if they were to teach a lesson related to this? So we're looking through. So part one has to do with looking at pictures. Part two reflects on the past and future. There are lots of questions to answer. And then you transform your shoes. So I'm going to leave it here because I think a lot of the meat of this lesson has to do with the reflection and then the planning how you're going to answer these questions through the materials you choose to decorate the shoes. So we'll pause just for another minute or so, and it would be great. Bernadette McKenzie, sharing Developing a Future Pathway Skills 1 and 2. Thank you, Bernadette. I 100% agree with you. Teresa, Developing a Future Pathway Skill 1, C and D. Fantastic. Yes, lots of Developing a Future Pathway here. I agree with that. Anyone else? If we could hear from one or two other people, that would really be great. Looking at the TIF, whether you're a teacher or a manager, becoming familiar with these skills gives us a better idea of what our students should be learning in the classrooms where we work, and also makes us more aware of what we're looking for in observations, and just helps us to know more about these standards in general. Okay, wonderful. Elizabeth, learning strategies, making inferences, fantastic. And then some critical thinking, wonderful, thank you. I really deeply appreciate everyone who's willing to share. And I am going to, in just a moment, take down the lesson plan. And then we're going to look at my version of the graphic organizer here. So Patsy says self-management, dealing with materials, the timeline, etc. Okay. And critical thinking, comparisons, understanding metaphor and symbol. Yes, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. All right, I am going to switch back to our PowerPoint, and I will show you, so some of the skills that, yes, there definitely are CCRS things going on. Some of the skills I identified: effective communication. This had to do with the part where you would discuss the questions in a group or with a partner. So seek and offer clarification, participate, make contributions, and encourage the contributions of others. Under learning strategies, make use of background knowledge. That was thinking about what do you know about a metaphor, what do you know about symbols. Then we had critical thinking, skill A and B. I was thinking when you were telling your story by the way you arranged the things on the shoe, sequencing your components in a logical order, categorizing items would come into play, and then developing a future pathway. I thought pretty much everything under Skill 1 about evaluating personal skills, strengths, values. So that's for some of the skills I thought about. And if we think about working on that project with our learners over the course of a week or two, look at how all of these skills would naturally come into play, and we would be covering so much and meeting so many standards. So our students were doing something highly, highly engaging, and also connect with each other and build community. So it's really just a very powerful way to organize lessons and materials here. And I'm going to let you know these are a lot more resources that Colleen shared for when she planned her tutoring lesson. So for trying this lesson out, you could use all of these resources to do that. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and pick another poll, and I'm going to see if there's been any movement with the project-based learning here. You're going to get the same question you were asked before, and we're going to see if people feel any differently now. So, articulate components and benefits of project-based learning for students and programs. What do you think? We've got about 50% of us voting. 7%, 72%. Okay, 72%. We'll leave the poll up for like a couple more seconds. Okay, so I will remind you where we were before. So when we took poll 1, 22% of us did ourselves as a 2, 33% are number 3, 20% was number 4, and 6% were number 5. And so we are, so you can see here these different, you can see here that people have moved in the right direction, certainly, for project-based learning. So we've increased, we have nobody who's a number 1. We have more people who are 2, we've got people who are 3, more people who are 4, and more people who are 2. I think that is positive, and I do hope that you got maybe a few ideas for things you might want to try in your program, think back and your about at your next site meeting or team meeting. Okay, and I do apologize. It seems like people were having some trouble hearing me. I'm sorry about that. Are close to, so that's maybe the good news. It would be great if we could just spend a couple minutes sharing with each other about any projects that you might have done that were project-based learning, something that you know that maybe went on in your program, wouldn't necessarily have to be you, but maybe some of your teachers. Have you done any projects like this in the past, or what ideas you have for project-based learning? So we'll pause here for just a minute and give people an opportunity to chat out a little bit, see if Anyone's got some ideas they could share? So we have the idea for the garden project. We have the idea for the shoe project. We'll see if anyone's got any other ideas we can share today. Okay, Patsy says that Hop has done some great projects, and she's remembering a mural, she's remembering some paper houses. Okay, so possible that someone might remember those projects. Anyone else? Can you think of any projects that have happened with your teachers or in your program? Okay, great. So that's about everything we had for today. So if anyone had questions or comments, we'll wait around for a few minutes. Otherwise, I want to thank you for joining us, and I want to let you know that there will be an evaluation that will pop up as you exit the webinar. It would be great if people could spend a few moments we would really appreciate that, and try to integrate your comments into planning for our next webinar. Patsy also said that Colleen from Robbinsdale did a quilt project. They talked about that at Summer Institute. Okay. So
yeah, I'll come on, Stephanie, and just thank everyone for being here, and thank you for your patience through some sound issues. And we know you were cutting out at some places, so thanks everyone for hanging in there. But if you listened hard, I know you could hear all the good stuff that was going on, so appreciate it. And I also want to just add that if people have more questions or interest in project-based learning, to definitely check out the resource library that we mentioned earlier. And also, if you have projects that you're interested in writing up for that library, I am on the lookout for such things. So just let me know what kinds of things you've done, and we'll get going on getting that written up to share with the field. So thank you so much, and thank you to Stephanie for facilitating today, and also to Mary and Liz for all of their help with today's sharing. I appreciate it.
all right, thanks, Patsy. I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you for joining us. Take care.